Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marco Geray Show. It's Friday, November 21st, 2025. Thank you for tuning in today's show to hear all the relevant groundbreaking news here in America and around the world, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths always thrive. Please don't forget to follow the show, give it 5 stars on whatever platform you might view it on, and share with whoever needs to hear the truth so we can save America together. That'd be very nice, I think. But now everyone's ready for the best hour radio has to offer, uncensored and ready to go as always. It's the end of the week. It's Friday. Let's get right down to business with our weekly economic update and see how America is doing before we dive into the other great topics I have for you today, as always. Let's take a look. How's the stock market doing? It's very mixed this week. Dow Jones and NASDAQ are slightly higher this week than last Friday's closing, while we have the S&P 500 and NVIDIA are both down about 1% from last week. Yeah, not looking too good in those, but remaining pretty stable. Gold trading at $4,111.70 per ounce this week, whereas last Friday it was closing out at $4,070.80 per ounce. Gerald Celente of the Trends Journal yesterday said that if gold actually stabilizes to around $4,200 an ounce for a couple of weeks, from there it will increase again from there. And then again, you'll see the value of the dollar begin to drop even more than what it is. Silver, our other wonderful precious metal, is trading at around $51.40 per ounce in that range right now. It's up about 1 to 1.5% from last Friday's close, despite a sharp fall from earlier this week. Oil, the most important thing we all care about, of course, Brent crude, trading at $63.74 per barrel today. It's only up about 0.11% from last week's close. But what's interesting about Brent crude, it's down 12.58%, lower than last year at this time. And some of you are saying, well, why is that, Geray? Oh, it's because, well, we have more supply. We know why that's happening. I've read that to you already. Right? We have more higher supply, same amount of demand. But we have weaker economies worldwide. We know this already. And earlier in this week, I told you about how Germany, which is the largest economy in Europe, is still stagnating this year after 2 straight years of a recession in 2023 and 2024. So 2025 looks roughly the same. There's really no growth in Germany. But Germany, Germany, good old Mertzy boy over there, Friedrich Merz, over in Germany wants to build their military now all of a sudden, right? To pawn off the German citizens off to a UN army. I suppose. I don't really know what the hell's going on there. How are you going to build an army when your economy's in the gutter? Without investment, it's going to be very difficult for the Germans to do this, by the way. But I love it always. They focus on defense. America's focusing on defense. These other countries are focusing in Europe on defense. And what the hell's China and India doing right now? Well, they're focusing on tech. Yeah, even Saudi Arabia wants to get in on that, too. So while these companies are investing in their own nations, these countries, rather, they're not investing in military. They're keeping their military strong, but they're investing in their nations. They're not giving foreign aid away to every country under the sun like we do. And again, that's also devaluing our dollar as time goes on. That's why we're seeing, I think about, this dollar is now 97, 98 cents, less than what it originally was back in 1913. That's why your purchasing power is in the toilet today. WTI, a little lower trading today, $59.01 per barrel, down slightly from just last week. How are we doing on the inflation front before we hit our jobs report today? Well, inflation has accelerated for the 5 consecutive months, rising to 3% year over year. Yep. Since September last year, we're up 3%. And since April, it was, 2.3% this year, and we've gone up to 3% now this year. Yep, that's all happening right now, folks. It's not going down. It's slowly trickling up. Not a good thing, I would have to say. This is per the Trends Journal. This is through Gerald Celente. I learned this. And he's talking about an AI bust, and that is on its way. I've been talking to you about this as well. Again, he's a very credible source, and I implore all of you to read the Trends Journal if you can. Want to subscribe to that. But he says here in this Financial Times article, he said that the majority of global fund managers think companies are overinvesting as market anxiety grows about the sustainability of artificial intelligence spending boom. So think about the money that we're putting into AI in this country, in China, in India, and elsewhere around the world. And also the companies that invest in this. But boom is going to be going the way of AI, right? So there's big boom going on right now. Soon it's going to be a big bust. And why is that? Well, you have China and India that I told you before are going to be leading in this, right? This technology. India right now is investing in it as well, heavily. They are going to lead the industry in this. And again, they're going to take down a lot of these jobs that we see here in America. So expect that to happen. Again, they're inflating the market here in America as well. But China and India are going to be leading the market of this. And America is trying to do its best to come in third, I suppose. I don't know what we're doing. But I know it's going to be very detrimental to our job growth in this country. So that's why I wanted to bring that part up to you as well. But where are we in this country in terms of the economy? How are we doing better? Are we doing worse? What's going on here? What's really happening? Well, over the past decade, speaking of wage stagnation, wage growth for middle-class workers has lagged significantly behind inflation. It says here in this report, real wages have increased by less than 0.5% annually since 2015. That means year over year. While inflation has consistently run around 3 to 4%. This disparity has now resulted in a cumulative cost of living increase of approximately 33% from 2015 to 2025, severely impacting purchasing power. Again, I told you this before. The value of the dollar is dropping. We have supply and demand issues in this country, but we're also losing good-paying jobs that would allow people to, again, have more purchasing power, of course. So that brings us to our next issue, the rising costs, the result of all this inflation. You have essential expenses such as housing, you have food, healthcare, have seen substantial price increases. For instance, food prices have risen by about 25%, and utility costs have climbed about 30% during this same period from 2025 to 2025. Excuse me, 2015, not to 2025. Had a Biden moment there. Excuse me, everyone. These rising costs consume a larger portion of the middle-class budgets. Then, of course, we have our economic disconnect. There is a growing disconnect between macroeconomic indicators and the lived financial realities of the middle-class families. And again, we see this in the job growth. The benefits have disproportionately accrued to the higher income households. And again, this brings me to COVID. Because up until then, Trump had a fairly good economy going for us. What COVID did was allow the rich to get much richer, and that trend is still continuing on today. When you say, hey, your small business isn't essential, that job isn't essential, but we're going to keep the big companies open and manufacturing all up and working, you're leaving behind many middle-income families that are now financially in distress because of all this. This is what's happening right now. So the COVID thing, the Great Reset, if you will, that's what set a lot of this into motion, where we see, again, the very big people getting much, much richer. We saw a massive transfer of wealth in that lockdown series that we saw, pushed by the great Anthony Fauci. Of course, we know Trump came out and initiated the first 2 weeks of it. But Fauci took the lead on that and said, oh, you got to lock down. You got to lock down. If you don't lock down, you got to lock yourself down. And then do what I say, because I'm the expert. And I speak for science. Remember all that? And everyone said, oh, yes, Anthony, yes. Oh, great, fantastic. We'll lock ourselves down. Oh, yeah, you want us to be fearful? We'll be fearful of this virus with a 99.9997% survival rate. Unless, of course, you had massive comorbidities. Or were extremely elderly and frail. None of that was necessary, folks. I've talked to you about this several times before. It was a massive transfer of wealth happening in that same time period, of course, while they got you to take a experimental gene editing shot. Yeah, they didn't even stop the transmission with zero safety testing, by the way. That's science. And of course, we spent, what, billions of our taxpayer dollars on that as well? So on top of all this, we had the government taking money from the Fed that they print out, right? They print it out from thin air, and they give it to these companies to produce this toxic garbage you shouldn't even put in your body. Now, I know I'm supposed to tell you, listen to your doctor. Well, of course, your doctor's going to tell you to take it. But you need to look at the research. That's what I tell you. Do your own research. What does the safety testing for these shots say? What is in these shots? Those are all reasonable questions. And again, you could ask your doctors this too. But I love everyone. Oh, well, my doctor said to go get it. I said, okay, well, you're very healthy. Is this something you want to actually do? You have no idea what's in these shots. Ask your doctor what's in these shots. Watch their head turn in circles around you. Unbelievable. Anyways, we have debt and financial distress. Many middle-class families are now turning to credit cards and dipping into personal savings to cover many expenses. That's because, again, they can't keep up with inflation. Lack of policy relief, and again, despite the ongoing financial strain in this country, there have been very little meaningful policy interventions to support the middle-class families. Now, of course, we continue the Trump-era tax cuts. That does help, of course, when you're able to keep more of your wealth. But proposals for the expanding of the child tax credits, increasing affordable housing initiatives, have faced a political gridlock, leaving many families without the support they need. That's America for you today. So again, I bring this up to you. I say these things to you because, again, if Trump doesn't start to work for middle-class families, which, again, is the bulk of the wealth and the business in this country, despite the bigs that are massive, I understand this. But it is small business that makes up this country. I think it's some 64% of the country is small businesses. We're going to let them just go wayside? That's it? Nothing for them? So we've got these issues happening, of course, and we have U.S. employers now. This is the AP. It says added an additional surprisingly solid 119,000 jobs reports in September of this year. Again, I don't know why my phone's ringing when people know I'm doing this show. It irritates me to no end, but I'm going to continue anyways. The hell with them. Issuing an economic report that has been delayed for 7 weeks by the federal government shutdown. And while some people will clap to this, of course we want more job growth in this country. That's a sign of strength, of course. But where did these jobs go? It says here the increase in payrolls is more than double what 50,000 economists had forecast. Okay, so that's good. I like this. But when you look at the previous months of this year, we saw 2 months where we had negative job growth. That means we had more people getting laid off than people getting hired. So again, we can't look to that as something good. But here's the thing. It says that more than 87% of the September job gains were concentrated in 2 different industries. Healthcare being one of them, and then social assistance and leisure and hospitality being the other thing. So healthcare, okay. Healthcare's good. Good paying jobs. But what the hell's social assistance? Well, that'd be social workers, things like that. Counselors, that type of field. Leisurely would be like, restaurant work, resorts, things of that nature. Are these the good paying jobs? Now, if they said 87% of the September job growth were manufacturing, I would get up and start clapping. So while the strong headline numbers tell us, hey, we had 119,000 jobs grown, when you look underneath it, you see a lot of it has been driven by healthcare. So at the end of the day, the question is, can you support an economic expansion on the back of one industry? We want it to be a collective. We want to see that. And we're really not seeing that. By the way, the unemployment rate now in the month of September rose to 4.4%. It was 4% when President Trump took office. So we need to also keep an eye on all of this, of course. But unemployment's been fairly stagnant for the past, couple of years now, leaning around the, mid 3% range as time goes on. Obviously, we want people that are looking for jobs to get those jobs. Now, it says here the data, though late, was welcomed by businesses, investors, and policymakers in the Federal Reserve. Of course, they're looking to cut interest rates as well. And of course, that information was lacking. We'll see if that does happen. It does seem like they're looking for more base cuts in that coming up. Again, because they want to expand the economy. They want to print out more money. The more money around, the more money they make, of course. So that'll be something we'll probably look into towards the end of the year. All right, one more good article. Actually, I got two more good articles, but I'll go over this one first. This is in Reuters. It's very interesting. I talked to you about the transfer of wealth and, of course, the collectivization of wealth in this country. It says here, Paramount and Comcast and Netflix submit bids for Warner Brothers Discovery. Oh, what's happening here? Another consolidation of our entertainment industry, is it? Yep, it says Thursday kicking off a potential sale of the century-old Hollywood studio. The bids set the stage for a significant consolidation in the media industry and will determine the future of the prized assets of HBO, the Warner Brothers Film Library, and DC Comics universe. Yeah, who wants to get their hands on this? Now, it says here Paramount is expected to bid for all Warner Brothers Discovery, including its cable television networks. And Paramount's bid is backed by the studio's controlling shareholder, billionaire Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, who is the world's richest man. This is the guy that wants to control TikTok. Now, why do I bring this up to you? Because they're trying to control all forms of entertainment and in media right now. And he is the light bearer for all this. I don't know what to say about this. He's trying to own TikTok. Obviously, we know he owns Oracle, a big tech company based in the San Francisco Bay Area. But now he wants his son to run up Warner Brothers now. So we see they own Paramount, they own Warner Brothers, they own this massive, massive market worth billions upon billions of dollars. And again, they're going to control what you see and hear. That's the point of it. Same thing with TikTok. That's why they want to control that. They want him to lead this board that looks at all this nonsense. Creates the algorithms, controls what you see, what you hear, what you think. That's the point of all this. So he's kind of one of the focal points in this whole let's control everything aspect. I mean, he's a billionaire. Of course he's going to bet on this. But again, it just, Reuters exclusively reported that Warner Brothers Discovery Board rejected a mostly cash offer of nearly $24 a share for the company, valuing it at $60 billion, and publicly announced it would evaluate strategic options for the studio. Well, the highest bidder is going to come in there. I don't think NBC Universal's Comcast is... Well, they're interested in Warner Brothers too. I don't know if they'll buy it as well. Who knows? But you see the consolidation of power here. And this is what I've been talking about with you. We see it in the food industry. We see it in the media and entertainment industry. We see these small groups of people buying up everything. This is what it comes down to. Is that good or bad for America? Well, I think more competition is good versus one person controlling so many different factions, controlling the narrative in many regards. But this is the world we live in now. Again, I told you the bigs get richer, they get more power, they get more consolidation, and you are stuck with this. Wouldn't you like to have diversity of your entertainment? Maybe get a patriot in one of these companies? I mean, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Get a patriot in there? Well, we can use wishful thinking for that. But again, I'm sure they will take this down because that's what they want. So Paramount Skydance, owned by his son, David Ellison, looking to buy Warner Brothers. There you go. Control the entertainment industry to a T. All right. That's our Economic Weekly Report, folks. Hope you'll take that as you will. The economy seems a bit stagnant right now. Again, I hope some things come in very, very soon. One thing I wanted to also comment on about all this, all the things that we're seeing right now. By the way, office bust coming very, very soon. 14.1% of offices and office buildings are null and void. That means no one is occupying them. They're abandoned. Get ready for that. That is going to take the banks down. And by the way, earlier this week, I talked with you about the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia coming to the White House and pledging this bigger investment into the United States from $600 billion to $1 trillion. And Trump said, "Are you really going to invest $1 trillion?" He said, "Oh, yes. Okay." So anyways, everyone clapped. I clapped too. I thought that was great. I like investments. Who doesn't like investments? The thing that I looked at, though, afterwards. I was listening to somebody speak, and they brought up the fact that the entire GDP for the country of Saudi Arabia is $1.24 trillion. So I said to myself, well, there's no way they're going to give, the bulk of their GDP to the United States for energy, AI, all this other nonsense. And then it just shone on me. I said, this is going to be years' worth of investments. There's no way they can give this much money at one time. This is why I said to you in the beginning, I said, let's talk about where we are, where these investments are going, where are we going to see these projects created. Because then they would say, hey, I'll give you $1 trillion. Okay. Over what? A 5-year period of time, 10-year period of time, 20-year period of time? Investments are good. Don't get me wrong. But when are we going to start to see the progress in all these? And that's the big question about this. There's no way he's going to give his entire country's GDP over to the United States in one go. So just wanted to bring that up with you as well on all this. So again, while we're happy about investments and, of course, these pledges, let's see it in ink. Let's see what our plans are for this. How are we going to use this $1 trillion? Over what period of time are we going to use this $1 trillion? How is that $1 trillion going to benefit the average American? Look what I just read to you about the middle class. All this is very, very important stuff, folks. So just wanted to bring that up to your attention, too, because I know most of you heard $1 trillion? Great. I said the same thing. I said, oh, good, $1 trillion. Scott Bessent, we got $21 trillion invested in the United States. Joe Biden only got $1 trillion. Okay, where is it? Where is it written down in contract? We are going to give you X amount of dollars to build X, Y, and Z. Or to build upon X, Y, and Z. Or whatever you want to build in. Where is it? That's what I want to see. Again, talk is cheap sometimes, folks. Never forget that. All right, moving on. PJ Media, talking about the scandal of Zelensky. Little Zelensky. Yeah. Says U.S.-Ukraine peace plan arrives as Zelensky weakened by massive corruptive scandal. Oh, yes. The little Zelensky, the little puppet boy, the little comedian, right? The cokehead, the failed actor, all those good qualities that made him the president, of course. Listen, PJ Media says the $100 million embezzlement scheme involved kickbacks from contractors in the energy sector aimed at bypassing Ukrainian bureaucracy and enriching Zelensky's cronies. How many times have I said this to you? I said this to you so many times in the past. We've given them so many billions of dollars, and 80% of the money we've given them, they can't figure out what even happened to it. They have no idea what they've done with it. Same thing goes with the weaponry we've given them. We find it now in the black market in many cases. Because they're not serious about winning this war. They're only serious about, again, power, control. Now it says here, the president has not been implicated in this scheme, but it has galvanized the political opposition. Well, of course it does. Because people are saying, where the hell are you getting this money from? He suspended elections in his country. I don't even know if this guy can even speak for his country anymore. Suspends elections due to the war? That he remains himself as president? Can he even sign off on anything we're talking about right now? That's the big question. What do the people of Ukraine say about this? It says here, as the most significant corruption scandal of Mr. Zelensky's tenure unfolds, opponents who had lain low are coalescing into the first major anti-Zelensky movement since the invasion began in 2022. It says these adversaries include Ukraine's independent anti-corruption agencies, opposition parties, political activists, and media outlets. Never forget, by the way, this is where the whole Burisma thing with Hunter Biden was, a corrupt oil company. God only knows if they're involved in this. With the handshake forgotten and the gloves off, Mr. Zelensky's critics are now speaking once unthinkable terms, including accusing presidential allies of betraying the country. Many Ukrainians have reacted with disgust to these accusations that his allies enrich themselves while the country's soldiers are dying in a fight for national survival, of course, which they cannot win. It says here the country has seen what the expression blood money really means, Mr. Poroshenko's political party said in a statement about the corruption scandal. And again, Mr. Zelensky's wartime cabinet said in the following statement, it is unprofessional and corrupt. This is so ridiculous. Yeah, we keep giving them money. So I think I read to you yesterday a 28-point peace plan that Trump is outlining for both Ukraine and Russia, I think he's come to the realization, look, this is a losing battle. We've given so many billions of dollars of our own money on top of what the EU has given them. They're not deterring anything. They're not stopping anything. There's more bloodshed now than ever. And the real numbers are, again, I've told you this before, the real numbers behind all this are really 1.8 million dead Ukrainians to about 700,000, 750,000, maybe 800,000 dead Russians in this whole 3-year conflict that's ongoing. Again, the media try to spin it. Oh, well, no, look at what's happening to Russia. They're losing the same amount of people every single day. No, they're not. And again, when you have the bulk of Ukrainians now fleeing the country, trying to get out of the country, going into Poland of all places, to avoid this conscription into the military where they know it's, deadly if they're on the front lines for sure. But all the people that have been telling you this, the Jack Keens, the Keith Kellogg's, oh no, they're doing great. Look how strong and brave they are. I'm not saying Ukrainians aren't strong and brave or brilliant or anything of that matter. But they're not deterring the Russian army, which is a formidable force to them. And you see this with the land grabs that are going on. Now they're trying to come on and say, well, Zelensky's not going to allow any type of territory to be given to the Russians now. Certainly any territory or region that they aren't currently occupying. So, for example, if they've taken a large piece of the Donbass, which is in eastern Ukraine, they're not going to give them the entire oblast. So they're trying to do things like that now. I think Zelensky is seeing the end of his tenure. I think it's over for him. But I think most importantly, Trump sees this too. And he doesn't want to be on the end saying, geez, we've invested all this money. I've talked about, bolstering their army up. We've given them this and that. We've talked about Tomahawk missiles, F-16s, all these things. And it's done nothing but cause more bloodshed. It's just ongoing. But understand this. The Russians are not going to stop until they get a peace proposal in writing, signed off by them, with the provisions that they want. And it seems like most people, most reasonable people, are looking into, I think, the majority of them and saying, okay, we agree with the majority of this. I don't think Putin is going to walk away until he gets all of it. That's just my interpretation of it. I'll let them speak for themselves, but that's what I think about this. I really do. I mean, Zelensky's weakened. He's really in no place to say anything. They've lost this war, and as a result of it, because the war has been ongoing this entire time, they're taking more land now. So we'll see what happens with Mr. Zelensky in this meeting with President Trump. We'll see what Vladimir Putin says about this 28-point plan. But it was presented to Zelensky yesterday, and we'll see. We'll see if this is the end of the road here. If there's finally going to be peace instead of more ongoing and widening of this war. I told you the other day, too, Putin needs to end this war quickly, too. I think Putin understands this as well. Because the more he goes on, the more likelihood for a false flag event, and again, bringing in more countries into this entire conflict, which he does not want. Now that they can't be strong and successful in it, but they don't want to go to war with the EU. They don't. So I think the realization, is that the word I'm on? Yeah, it is. The realization, there we go. Another Biden moment today. It's Friday, folks. I'm a little tired today. The realization is that they got to end this conflict. And if they don't end this conflict quickly, we're going to see an ever-widening war. We don't want that. All right, this is the other elephant in the room that took place just the other day. This is in Bloomberg. It says, Trump calls for sedition trial after Democrats warn troops. So I saw this yesterday, and it's so stupid, these things that are going on, especially coming from the Democrats, of course. So I'm going to break this down to you. A lot of people are talking about this today, and they're talking about how, obviously, this is sedition from these Democrats, these 6 Democrats that got up there and on their, soapbox, and they started this rhetoric about President Trump. But the thing that I didn't understand in this whole conflict that they find themselves in, I said, why are they doing this? What's the reasoning for this? I mean, there's really no reason for them to come out and say all this. Most of it's common knowledge in the military. But I'm going to play it for you. I want you to hear this. I think it runs about 90 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. But President Trump has called out the following. He posted on Truth Social. He said, seditious behavior punishable by death. And he put that in quotes. So I'm going to play this for you right now. I want you to hear it first, and then we'll break it down, and we'll hear from some of the Trump administration on this and their positions as well. Okay, so let's hear it. Let's hear what they're having to say, and then we'll break it down afterwards. Here we go. All right, here's Alyssa Slotkin starting us off. Here we go.
Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris Deluzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
And the intelligence community.
who take risks each day.
To keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
And intelligence community professionals.
against American citizens. Like us, you all swore an oath.
To protect and defend this Constitution.
And right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
But from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
you must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law.
Or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army,
Our Navy,
The Air Force.
your vigilance is critical.
and know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
The American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws.
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Okay. Don't give up the ship. All right. What are they talking about here? So there's a couple of different things. One, I mean, they allude to the fact that President Trump is giving them unlawful commands. They don't say anything about it. They kind of tiptoe around, I guess, what they're trying to say. But they're trying to say, hey, you don't have to follow unlawful commands. Now, I did a little sleuthing on this issue. And I came to find out that they already teach this during military training and, of course, in military school. They don't have to follow that soldiers or anybody in any branch of government in the military. They don't have to follow this, an unlawful command. They can question authority. They can ask if this is an unlawful command. I don't have any problem with that aspect. Asking a superior, is this a lawful command? They have every right to do that. They are swearing an oath to our Constitution, not to our president. Just like our members of the Congress, by the way. Just thought I'd clear that up, too. Of course, that hasn't stopped any of them. Notice they didn't give any examples of when they served. When I served in the military, I did X, Y, and Z when I was given this command. You're telling me all these people served and not one bit of corruption? Not one illegal order came before them? Come on. As if this just started under President Trump. So anyways, the big question here is this insurrection? Is it treasonous? Is it sedition? So, of course, there's this admonition was to ignore an illegal or unlawful command given by a superior. And, of course, they're trying to say this is President Trump's doing. But then they worded it like the military is being pitted against the American people. So I don't know if they're talking about our military in D.C. We don't know what they're even talking about. This is the problem. They're just alluding that this is, unlawful acts being committed now by our servicemen, is what I'm taking from it. So they're very vague in this situation. Maybe they wanted to be. But to my knowledge, none of these members of the Congress are in active military, which would be a major problem, of course. Therefore, they would not be subjected to the USMJ protocols or any other commands because they are now considered civilians. But from a military standpoint, they didn't really break any guidelines. So the military can come and say, okay, you were a former CIA agent, you're a former, Air Force, military, Marine, whatever you are. There are laws against speaking out against the government and authority while in uniform. To my knowledge, none of them are in that position. Then, did they say things that I disagree with? Well, of course they did. One of the things said that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military and intelligence community professionals against American citizens. That's what Mark Kelly started to say. So this is the part I don't understand. What is he talking about, pinning the military against the United States citizens? Is it because they're in certain cities? Protecting some of these ICE facilities where we're seeing mass violence against federal agents? I don't understand. Again, they're very vague here. They're not giving an example of what they're talking about. Again, they're further stating that the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but coming from right home. So they're insinuating that our government is creating unlawful and giving unlawful commands to our military to conduct against American citizens. But then he's up saying you can refuse illegal orders. Well, they already know this. They're taught this. It's not anything new under the sun. They know this. The whole thing is a bit odd to me that they would come out and do this. So they're clearly suggesting that the president and this administration are doing something illegal in terms of the military, but they never say what it is. So while I believe in the Constitution, of course, as you know, and of course, I believe in domestic, constitutional law, international law should not be violated. And of course, I believe in questioning authority. I'm not opposed to that. I don't believe these statements, though, met the definitions of insurrection or treason. It kind of tiptoes on the issue of sedition, which we're going to get into. Let's get into it right now. Why not? Well, let's do that. We'll see what let's see what you think. An insurrection is any violent uprising against U.S. authority or laws. That's not what happened here. There was no violent uprising. They didn't say, everyone that's in the military, meet us here at such and such a time with your weapons. We're going to take this government down. That'd be an insurrection. Treason, levying war against the United States or aiding any enemy. So that'd be, that'd be a foreign entity. That'd be if they were speaking like directly to the cartels or some other foreign body that was trying to take over a government, create a war. It's not treason. But sedition is this. Sedition is speech or conduct inciting rebellion against lawful authority. Now this one, again, it kind of tiptoes on this, I think, because the speech is directed from members of Congress to the military, of which they have really no say in, by the way. That'd be President Trump and, of course, Pete Hegseth's domain right there. But it says speech, so obviously what they were saying, or conduct inciting rebellion. Now, of course, they didn't tell them what to do. All they said was you can disobey unlawful orders given by, obviously, a superior. So to me, they didn't say, hey, when you're given an unlawful command, you need to get your buddies and, take down this, government and such and such. So if they were inciting some type of violence, what they're saying doesn't really match to this, I don't think. Speech or conduct inciting rebellion against lawful authority. So if they use the word unlawful, so they're not referring to lawful. Now if they said, hey, President Trump gives you a command, you say no because this president wants to destroy America or is violating your rights. You have every right to take down this government. That's different. So they used careful words, of course. Maybe this is what they intended. But it doesn't match the term sedition. It really doesn't. I mean, I got to be honest with you. And the legal term for this is if two or more persons conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the United States government, levy war against it, or oppose its authority by force, they can be fined or imprisoned for up to 20 years. I don't think it meets this category either. I got to be honest with you. It doesn't seem to be meeting this for me. As distasteful as I think some of these comments were, speaking about the active government right now. But again, if these 6 Democrats actually believe that our military are or have been doing something illegal, why have none of them spoke out about it? And tell us exactly in this clip what the hell they're referring to. Again, it's distasteful, it's banal, it's these members have freedom of speech, of course. But if these 6 led the military to overthrow the government or in some way told them, hey, you in this position just need to stop listening to your superiors. dismiss everything they say because they're illegitimate, they're this, they're that. That's something a little bit different, I think, than what they were alluding to. But they didn't say, if you're given a lawful command, just ignore it. That would definitely qualify as sedition in that case. So they're very careful with their words, I think. But again, what is the purpose of all this? What is the I mean, again, I don't think they're trying to lead any type of overthrow of the government or any concerted effort to do so. Things obviously would be different there. But what is the point of this? I mean, they could tell someone not to follow an unlawful command. They already know how to do this, though. Why do they need them to tell us this? That's what I don't understand about this. They're already taught this. And they're not in any position to lead the military. Again, they'd be our generals, our lieutenants, our captains, obviously the Secretary of War now, Pete Hegseth, or President Trump. They're the ones who lead the military, not the members of Congress who are in the legislature. Again, they're not in uniform. If any of them are still in the service, then obviously this would come down hard on them, I think. But as civilians, I think they're protected by, obviously, the First Amendment here. So again, I wish I had some better news for you, but I don't view this as any of the three. So I wanted to bring that up with you. Now, of course, Stephen Miller didn't take very kindly to this. And here's what he said with Will Cain yesterday on his show.
It is insurrection, plainly, directly, without question. And when you have one of the lawmakers on that video being unable to state in, as you say, lengthy cross-examination, a single so-called illegal order, it just proves the point. It's a general call for rebellion from the CIA and the armed services of the United States by Democrat lawmakers, saying that you have not only the right, but the duty and the obligation to defy orders of the commander-in-chief, that those who carry weapons in America's name should defy their chain of command and engage in open acts of insurrection, that the CIA, the clandestine service, which isn't even legally authorized to operate in the United States, should engage in, again, acts of rebellion and insurrection. These lawmakers should honestly resign in disgrace and never return to public office again for even daring to think, let alone to say these words and to say them proudly. But it shows what a dangerous moment we're in. We have seen the Democratic Party nurse the flames of violence and insurrection against the federal government.
Okay, so again, I'm not denying that they can't provide any examples. I said the exact same thing. Why can't they provide us with an example? What's the unlawful command they're being given that they're following out on? And they're conducting on American soil. That's what they were alluding to. If they can't do it, then what the hell's the point of this clip that they put out, I guess, on social media? I have no idea where this even is. I don't even know if any of our military men and women in uniform would even see this. But he's not wrong that it's, again, a bit odd and wrong to do, I think. Again, I told you, they have freedom of speech, though. That's the problem. We have laws that protect freedom of speech in this country. We can't get around that. They are considered civilians, just like you and I, despite being in political office. I don't think they told everyone just to disobey any lawful command. If they said, for example, you have a duty to disobey your superior right now, so you should go out and do that, then I agree with them 100% on this. But they said you have a right to disobey any unlawful command when presented with it. Again, they already know this, so I don't know why they need these 6 people to come out and tell them this. That's why, I think it's just, again, distasteful. I don't think it's conducive to anything positive, of course. But again, they have the right to say what's on their mind, I suppose, even if they did previously serve in the military. And again, they didn't encourage them to do any type of illegal behavior. They never called for violence in the video of any kind that I saw. So to me, again, while I don't like it, I take it as, with a grain of salt. What's the purpose of this? There really is none. Again, as he told you, they had one of the members on, I think, with Martha McCallum, and he couldn't even provide one example of the illegal behavior that they're alluding to in the video. So again, what's the purpose of this? To create division? Inside our military? Inside our CIA? What is going on here? Again, I'll let the lawyers handle this one. But to me, I don't think this qualifies as sedition as is being touted. Again, I don't think it's anything constructive or positive coming from our legislature. Again, I don't know why they feel the need to speak directly to the military when that's totally out of their reach. Yes, freedom of speech is freedom of speech, but they're saying it from the position of lawmakers. They all said who they were. I'm Senator this. I'm Senator that. I'm Congressman this. I served in this branch. Okay, that's fine. But you're a member of the United States Congress. Why are you speaking directly to the military? And again, I told you before, if something illegal is happening from our federal government, why haven't they spoken out about this again before? Because they didn't give us any examples of this, and they can't when they're asked about it. So to me, again, it just sows more division. I don't think it's constructive. Do I think it's illegal? I don't think it's going to be considered illegal, but we'll see what happens with this. We'll always see what's going on in this government. No sign of normalcy anytime soon. Speaking of no normalcy, look at this. This is the New York Post. This makes me sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe I read this last night. It says here, senior citizen who saved himself from would-be mugger is headed to prison because of New York City's draconian laws. Again, I can't believe this is happening in New York State. It doesn't shock me, but it's just sickening to me. It says here, a Queens senior citizen, his name's Charles Foner, 67 years old, pleaded guilty to one of the counts of criminal weapons possession Thursday in a deal to end his case more than 2 years after he fatally shot would-be theft Cody Gonzalez, who charged him at his home near Kew Gardens. Okay, so what happened here? What happened here? It says here, the Queens District Attorney Office chose not to prosecute Foner, a retired doorman, for Gonzalez's killing after he told cops he defended himself from a mugger who lunged at him late at night holding what looked like to be a knife, which turned out to be a pen. Okay. And again, this gentleman, you can see him in the picture here on this post, certainly not a young man. But prosecutors then slapped him with a slew of weapons raps for unlicensed handgun and an arsenal of illicit handguns that he owns, revolvers and rifles inside his home in the so-called quiet neighborhood where I guess people can come out at night and try to attack you. Now, it looks like he tried to do this plea deal to avoid a bigger trial where he could have faced 25 years in prison on gun charges. It says here, his lawyer, Thomas Kenoff, called Foner a hero who was put in an impossible situation by what he called a draconian Big Apple gun laws that make it difficult for law-abiding citizens to obtain permits to carry firearms. Why do we have a Second Amendment? We have a Second Amendment for several reasons. Number one, obviously, you have the right to bear arms, to form a militia should the government become draconian and tyrannical. Yep, we have that. But we also have it for self-defense, too. You have the right to protect yourself and your persons, right? That's why we have a Fourth Amendment. You have the freedom to be secure in oneself. You don't have to go play, roll over to these criminals on the streets of New York City because they rule the streets. You have a right to defend yourself, and this is why we have a Second Amendment. Now, as they're saying, well, you didn't license that firearm with us in our draconian registry now that we have, so we can see who has which. What does that do, by the way? Does that stop any of this violence if you register a firearm? Again, it's asinine in and of itself. He said if this was a state and city that had its affairs in order, Mr. Foner would be getting a plaque, not a prison sentence. So this guy who defended himself against this career criminal, by the way, yeah, it says here that he was arrested dating back to 2004 15 times and has a record of mental illness, continuing to charge at Foner even after the senior pulled his gun out. Yep. So what they were saying is, Foner, you should have let this guy mug you. By the way, it's all caught on security footage, by the way. This guy's running right at him. What looks like to be a knife in his hand. So this guy is supposed to do what? And I'm sure he told him to get back and whatnot. But he should have just let this guy mug him, maybe punch him in the face, maybe kick him on the ground. Again, he's 65 years old this time. He's not a young guy. Hey, let him tackle him. Maybe he'll smash your head in the pavement. Maybe he'll kick you in the face. Listen, you should have just laid down. Maybe call the cops. Maybe they'll show up 20 minutes later. They'll get a report. Nothing will happen. Yeah, that's justice for you, right? That's what New York City wants you to do. Play victim. And this guy said, no. Well, what's the end result of this? Could be the guy could stab him with a pen. It's not impossible to stab somebody with a pen. Would he have? I have no idea. How the hell should I know? But when someone is mugging you for whatever reason, you're just going to stand there and do nothing? Play victim? I mean, some people could choose that. I don't know. But why is a guy who's been arrested 15 times, by the way, out in the streets so he can do this again? That doesn't give a list of the 15 arrests in this article. But this just shows the stupidity of New York City, where the streets are not safer because of this. You're going after the victims in these situations. It's not like this guy just went and hunted this guy down and shot him. Oh, by the way, you never registered your gun. Who knows what would have happened if this guy didn't have a firearm? We have no idea. But again, this is very frustrating for people in New York. And again, they try to do these things with pistol permits and things like that. It's not working. It's not working in the slightest. And you're not protecting the most vulnerable population. Again, which is this elderly 67-year-old man now has to sit in jail for 4 years because he shot a criminal, a thug, who was trying to mug him. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. Again, I told you on Monday, our founding fathers wouldn't even recognize this country. They'd say, are you kidding me? You're letting a criminal who's trying to attack somebody be the victim in this situation? But it was he who caused the situation first? By the way, too, Phoner said that he was carrying the gun because of violence increasing in his neighborhood. The crime that they let get out of control. And then when somebody takes it in their own hands, and I told you this on Monday, they don't want leaders of this country. They don't want people standing up for themselves. They want you to call the cops, go through the protocols, let the cops handle it. Hey, the cops show up after the fact. They don't show up when the crime is happening. And it's not even their job to show up right when they show up after the fact. It's their job to protect you. Now, sometimes cops will show up to a scene, obviously, and protect people and help people out. But the cops show up, by and large, after the fact. So you wanted this guy to, lay there and just let this guy do this? Possibly kill him? Who knows? How do we know this guy didn't have a knife on him? He didn't know that. He could have tackled him on the ground with a gun and just shot him right there. Everybody has a right to defend themselves. That is in our Constitution. And your ability to exercise your Second Amendment right is also in there as well. Shall not be abridged. But there we go. They don't care about this, these judges, these lawmakers, these city officials. They don't care. But they pervert the law, and of course, they put these people out in the streets, and then they're so shocked when they commit a crime again. It's unbelievable. By the way, Chicago, a guy on a subway has been arrested, I think, 49 different times. Multiple different felonies. Let out by a judge again, and he lights a woman on fire. Screaming, burn, B-word alive, I believe is what he yelled out. It's disgusting. Oh, he's got a history of mental illness. Oh, of course. So they put him back out on the street so, he can attack you. This is the BBC. I'm going to have two more articles I want to go over before we hit our weekend. It says here that ultra-processed food is a global health threat, is what experts warn. I've been telling you this for so long. That's why I always give you these health articles here and there. But they're saying now action is now needed to reduce the ultra-processed food and diets worldwide because of the threat to health, is what international experts have been saying. It says that they say that the way we eat is changing with a move away from fresh, whole foods to cheap, highly processed meals, which is increasing our risk of a range of chronic diseases, including obesity, depression. I'll go a little step further. Diabetes, of course, cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, any type of heart disease, cancer, especially associated with the Roundup that's put in and sprayed on these seeds and the growing process of a lot of these foods. But writing in The Lancet, the researchers say that the governments need to step it up and introduce warnings on the higher taxes on UPF products, that'd be the ultra-processed foods, to help fund access to more nutritious foods. However, some scientists say that this review cannot prove that the UPFs directly cause health harms, and more research and trials are needed to show that. I don't think so. We know glyphosate causes cancer. We know this. It's a genetically modified organism, and they spray these chemicals on it so it can sustain the pesticides, the herbicides that are put on it, so that they can process it cheaper. That's the way it works. So the ultra-processed foods are defined as containing more than 5 ingredients you would not find in your home kitchen cupboard, such as emulsifiers, preservatives, additives, dyes, sweeteners, sugar. Sugar, the culprit of feeding cancer cells, folks. Yep, there it is. That all works together. By the way, sugar also causes inflammation in the body, right? That's not good, especially for your vascular system, for your brain, all this. Now, they go over some examples of the UPFs. Include sausages, crisps, pastries, biscuits, instant soups, fizzy drinks, ice cream, and supermarket brand breads. Yeah, all those things, carbs. Yeah, you should have some level of carbs, but certainly not the ultra-processed junk inside of them. By the way, stay away from seed oils too, folks. They have them in this chart here that they're looking at. So what's the end result of all this? How can we get away from all this? What have I been telling you this whole time? Look at this. Includes type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, kidney disease, depression, and dying prematurely from any cause. Look at this. Look at this. It says this review of evidence on the impact of UPFs on health carried out by 43 global experts and based on 104 long-term studies suggests these foods are linked to a greater risk of 12 health conditions. So what's the end result? You got to start eating cleaner, folks. You got to make sure you're getting half your body weight in fluid ounces consumed each day. I prefer distilled water, of course. That's the purest form of water. Should be taking supplements as well, by the way. Antioxidants, things of that nature. Making sure that you have the proper amount of omega-3s for your brain development so you don't become an idiot, of course. All those things. But you want to eat clean foods. Foods that haven't been injected or filled with meats, especially. When you have meats that have been injected or they've been giving nothing but soy and corn, again, it's not what they should be eating. So if you're getting food from a farmer's market or from a local food store, you should be getting food that is locally grown if you can. And I say if you can because, again, it's very difficult sometimes. But you should try to go to farmers markets, buying from them local, because a lot of it's not going to contain these injections, these hormones that are put into the livestock primarily, or any of it. And it's going to be whole natural food. And if you can buy USDA organic or non-GMO, when you can, you should be looking to do that. That's the best way around all this. And of course, daily exercise as well. Again, stay away from all these things, the ice creams, the junk foods, the chips, the fast food in general, the sodas. Your diet should contain mostly fats and proteins. And again, you need a little bit of carbs in there as well. But nothing that is ultra-processed with a lot of these fake chemicals in them. And it's only going to lead to more problems in your diet. Oh, by the way, one more article before we close today's segment in today's broadcast. Here's something positive. I think I saved it for the end of the week. I found it the other day. So the Orthodox Church pews are overflowing with converts. This is the New York Times, which I call the New York Crimes, but today I'll call it the New York Times because I like this article. It says something is changing in an otherwise quiet corner of Christianity in the United States. One that prides itself on how little it has changed over time. Priests are swapping stories about record attendance numbers. Older members are adjusting, or not, to the influx of new attendees. Parishes are strategizing about how to accommodate more prospective converts than existing clergy can reasonably handle on their own. Now, across the country, the ancient tradition of the Orthodox Christianity is now attracting energetic new adherents, especially among conservative young men. I told you this before. You're seeing this in the Catholic Church as well. You're starting to see lots more young conservative men showing up to Mass and church services in America. Why is that? Because what they've been taught, or in the environment they've been around, isn't working for them. It's not a net benefit to them. So now you're starting to see people starting to show up to church more often. They're listening to the Word of God, and they're getting something from this. And again, I attribute a lot of this to the work of Charlie Kirk in this arena, again, which he pushed in many of the conferences and the events that he would hold. He would talk about his belief in Christianity and, of course, his belief in God. So now we're seeing in the United States, the Orthodox Christianity is by far the smallest and least known of the major three branches of Christianity, representing only about 1% of the population compared to about 40% Protestant and 20% who are Catholic. But the Orthodox pews have now historically been occupied by immigrants from Ukraine, Greece, and other countries with large Orthodox populations. Their American-born children often drift to other churches. But a homegrown Orthodox Christianity is striking emergence. Many of the young Americans new to the pews have been introduced to the Orthodoxy by hard-edge influencers on YouTube and other social media platforms. What did I tell you? What did I tell you, folks? It's all because of what they see around them. What they see around them is not working. And when they see things around them that's not working, when they see society crumbling, they're asking themselves, what's going on out there? I've been living in this secular society. I've been doing what they've told me at school. It's not working. Why do I feel so disconnected from the world around me? And the reason is because of their lack of belief and focus in holding the Sabbath. That's what it comes down to. So that's why I implore you all to attend Mass whenever you can, should you like to. I think you'll get something out of it. Folks, thank you again for being here. I appreciate you so much this week. Share the show with some friends, and I'll see you on Monday, as always, on the next Marco Dure Show. Until then, be good, stay busy, and God bless each and every one of you.